Ania Guzik, witam serdecznie. Dziś w naszym studio wyjątkowy gość, ksiądz Remery, autor książki Tweetując z Bogiem. Niezwykłej pozycji na rynku książkowym, opowiadającej prostym, łatwym językiem o najważniejszych sprawach związanych z wiarą. Welcome.
Thank you.
To Michel. I'm very glad that you're here at our studio. How do you like it?
It's great to be here. It's wonderful. Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękujemy. So we're here today to talk a little bit about your book, Tweeting with God, which was translated already to how many languages?
Well, quite a few. It's interesting how it's growing step by step.
Yeah, because it's really interesting. I'm really impressed with the book and the whole idea. And exactly that's the question I actually want to start with. Where the idea came from to write a book that contains very short pieces about our faith, but very interesting ones.
It all started when I was working in the parish in Holland. I worked with a lot of young people, and they used to come at the end of Mass at the door of the church to ask me some questions about the faith. These questions became more and more, so I couldn't answer all of them in the short time I had there at the door of the church. So I asked them to write them down. And that I knew. They sent me over 1,000 questions through all kind of media, on little bits of scratches of paper, but also through Twitter, Facebook, email, any means they had, they sent me the questions. And then I gathered the young people and we started to discuss one by one their questions.
Thank God for a priest like that.
Oh, no, it was good, and it's important because questions are a step into getting to know something more about the subject you're interested in, or a subject you have questions about. Because
so you started tweeting with each other?
We communicate in many ways, but the main way of communication was a personal communication. So we were sitting in a group and directly speaking to each other. That is always the best way to communicate. Of course, there's other means. We used Twitter, we used Facebook, and the questions came by those means. I gave answers, but an answer in Twitter can be very interesting, can be a help, a step, but you need something more.
Yeah, because it's only 140 words,
That's right, that's right. As you see in the book, we have a tweet there, but there's more explanation to it. Hopefully the tweet will help people to get even more hunger to understand something about the question.
Yeah. So young people like it? How did they react?
Well, they came with their questions. We started to discuss it, and basically the book is a collection of the summaries we made at the end of the evening about the way we discussed the theme. The idea of the book and of the entire project is to give an answer to the question from the point of view of the Catholic Church, but also taking into account that what people are living today. We live in a world which has many different ways of life, and all those different people with their own ways of life are living together, which means that you can come with your questions from different angles. We try to answer as simple as possible the questions using a language that everybody can understand. And of course sometimes we have those terms that we need to use when you want to speak about Jesus and the fact that he rose from the dead. You have to use the word resurrection, but if you use the word, you first have to explain what the word means, and that's what we try to do in the book. Yeah,
so who is the book for?
It is meant in the first place for young people that want to know something about the faith, that are posing questions. And we have noticed that it's also useful for those who are working with young people, because it's a helpful way to prepare for discussions with them. And it is also helpful for those who are preparing to be baptized, for example, or for other sacraments, or adults that want to know something more about the faith. So it's not limited to young people. The first addressees are indeed the young people, and in the first place, those young people in Holland with whom I was in dialogue.
Right. And it's been some time since the edition of the book, and do you already have the feedback? How does it work on the market, and how does it work with young people, with people who also want to discover the faith?
Well, we started with a publication in Dutch in 2012 and 2013. These two have been sold out completely, which in itself is a sign that there was a market for it. And we have had a reprint with some minor additions that have been inserted also in the Polish edition. The thing is that the young people themselves of the group, they continued to work on the project and got some other young people involved. And they wanted not just a book, because young people today do not only read books. Actually, there's young people that hardly read any book. So you need to be present in other ways if you want to enter into dialogue with young people. So we have a website, we have an application for the mobile phone, which is making a direct link between the book and the website, and a presence on the social media, for the moment in English, a language that many young people do speak. And the feedback comes from very different angles, of course, but it generally is positive, simply because people are interested in hearing about the faith. It's not just that this is such a good project, it's more that people want to know something about the faith, they want to have answers to their questions, and the questions that we collected here, these are 200 chosen questions out of the many questions by the young people, many of them overlapped, of course. These are questions posed by all people inquiring about the faith and wanting to know something more about who God is, where does the Bible come from, and many other questions.
Right, simple questions, but very important ones, and those that people sometimes don't know how to answer. You have one very special reader of your book that saw the book, Pope Francis. How did he react when he saw it? Tell us a little bit about that meeting with the Pope when you showed him the book.
Well, that was a very beautiful meeting. I showed the book and I told him what it is, that we are trying to engage into dialogue with young people about the faith. And he said, this is very, very important. And it was very beautiful. As soon as I asked him to pray for the people involved in the project and those who will be reading the books and read the project on the internet, he closed his eyes, put his hand on the book, and in very deep prayer started to pray for us all involved, and that was very moving. And he really took his time to do so. He had to greet many other people, it wasn't a more general audience, but he took time to pray and to learn more about the project. It was very beautiful.
Yeah, he's the one, I think, who understands how important it is to get to young people through Twitter, through Facebook, through modernity, let's call it that way.
We only have to look at the tweets by Pope Francis himself.
Exactly.
He is tweeting about the gospel, about Christian life, and he's doing in a very inspirational way. And every time, especially when he speaks to young people, he calls them to get to know Christ, learn more about the faith, and follow him. Right. That's exactly what the entirety of our faith is about, of course.
He should probably hire you in the future in the Vatican.
Well, we would be very happy to hire Pope Francis for our project.
Exactly. And you're here, and I'm very, very keen to hear about your story, because you were not the priest who, at the age of 18, thought, well, I'm going to be a priest. Your story is a little longer. Tell us about it.
Well, as I was 18, I was about to start my studies of architecture and enjoying that very much. And then worked for a few years in the ambit of architecture, also for an international firm.
So you were an engineer?
I was an engineer, yes. I am an engineer.
You are an engineer, exactly. You could build our studio probably.
Good, that's right. So yes, I'm an architect and an engineer, and worked with a lot of pleasure in an international setting. Had a beautiful girlfriend, a beautiful car, and a beautiful career. What else could somebody want in life? But I noticed that something was missing, and over the years, it took some time, I started to realize that my faith became more and more important. One of the important factors in growing my faith was a meeting with Pope John Paul II in Manila in 1995.
World Youth Days.
That was right. I was there for World Youth Day. It was my first experience of World Youth Day, but also my first experience of the Universal Church. Maybe you know something about the church in Holland. There were many old people as I went to church, and not many young people. That was the view I had of a church which was running on its hind legs. But then I came to World Youth Day, and I saw...
So John Paul II helped you change that picture, right?
Yes, absolutely. Seeing all those young people, and then I had a moment where I had a chance to speak for a few minutes to John Paul II. And one of the things we spoke about is living the faith today, and I told him it's very difficult today, and he said, yes, it's difficult, but I'm sure you are able to live up to that what God is asking from you, and I'm sure you can. And I still remember the way he looked at me with his very poignant eyes and impregnating this message into me and into my heart. And that's the message that really stayed with me. It is possible, and yes, I can live the faith. So later on, when I was working as an architect, I started to learn more about my faith and started to discover somewhere deep inside of me that something was more important than architecture, and I was becoming a priest. So after a few struggles and a few fights with God, I decided that I had to give in. So I did, and from that moment on things went very smooth, because as soon as I went to the bishop to say, I think God is calling me to be a priest, he sent me to Rome, where I did my studies, and which I was able to finish in the direction of liturgy and architecture. So beautifully, something of my past came back into
the perfect mix.
Studies of theology, yes.
This is amazing, an amazing story. So yeah, very powerful words about our Pope also, how powerful he was with convincing people about their faith. And we're preparing here in Krakow for World Youth Days. And your book seems to me just the perfect one to start the preparation for World Youth Day, because this is going to be a meeting with the Pope, who is very similar in some ways to John Paul II, very open-minded, very open with talking with people, meeting with people, especially young people. So how would you suggest young people to prepare for World Youth Days, apart from reading your book, of course?
Well, I think the most important thing is to work on your personal relationship with Christ, to grow in getting to know who is Jesus in general, but especially who is he for me, and what part can he play in my life. And hopefully then later on people will be able to say, okay, what part can I play in the life of Jesus and of the church? But of course it always starts with our own path. And I think it's very, very important for any person, but especially for young people who are preparing for World Youth Day, which is a meeting with other young people, with the Pope, but especially with Christ, to get to know him better and to work on their relationship. And one of the ways in which you work on the relationship with someone is getting to know the person. And I hope this book will be one of the ways in which people can get to know something about the faith, something about God, and what Jesus wants to do for us and wants to give each person with love for really every person in the world.
Okay, are you going to be here in 2016?
I sincerely hope so.
You're very welcome to. Please come.
Thank you very much. It'll be a great joy. Yes.
Okay, it was a great pleasure to speak with you. And I hope it's not, it's the first, but I hope it's not the last time when you're in our studio, because this conversation was really interesting and really powerful. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.